That's not Judgment Day. This is what happens when He comes back. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in all holiness and godliness, looking forward to and hastening the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to His promise, look for a new heaven and a new earth in which dwells righteousness. This stuff gets destroyed. Now go over to Revelation 20.
All these are written down, is that what you said?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm 98% sure all this is on there. If it's not, we're getting it on video. Let me recommend you get the video, the scriptures, and the charts. And go back through this. Revelation 20, beginning at verse 9. It says, "And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and encompassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them." Talking about the enemies of God. "And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and they shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne, and Him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. So what remains of the material creation that has been melted down and is being dissolved, when Christ comes on the white throne, even the rest of material creation flees from Him. This is a throne of glory. This is a throne of glory. Because He comes on the white throne as a judge. Now I want you to pause on that for just a second. Okay? I want you to pause on that for just a second. We have absolutely no way to conceive of how absolutely terrifying Jesus is. So no. Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 10. Why should we not turn our back on the gospel? Because what? It is a terrible thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Scripture does not say that in vain. Hebrews 10. Hebrews 12 reminds us, the last verse of the chapter, our God is a consuming water slide. Fire. Jesus is terrifying, y'all. You say, no, I'm not sure about that. Read Revelation 19. He comes on a white horse, a sword shooting out of His mouth, and when He comes in judgment against the earth, as He's killing people, He invites the birds of the air to eat on the flesh of the dead bodies. So, wait, no, this isn't Jesus like I teach about in Sunday school. No, but this is the holy Lord God, creator of the universe, who comes back in righteous judgment. And He's not to be trifled with. When He comes again and He takes us up out, He does us a huge favor. Because everyone who's left still has to experience His wrath in the flesh. Then He raises them up. Because go verse 12 now. Revelation 20. "And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God. And the books were opened. And another book was opened." If you want some interesting reading, go back and read all the different books that God has. There's quite a few books that get opened on the Day of Judgment. Do you know there's a book of remembrance? Malachi reminds us of that. If you like to sit around and talk with other people about God and reminisce about God's great works, God writes you down in that special book. Not everybody's in it. Because not everybody who claims to love God actually cares to even talk about it and remember His great works. That's God's book of remembrance. David talks about one of his books. All the different books are open. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. And the sea gave up its dead, and death and Hades, this, Okay, you say mine says death and hell. Yes, the Greek though is Hades. And death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works. And hell and death, or death and Hades, were cast into the lake of fire, and this is the second death. Now, here's how someone says, no, the Christian won't ever see this. Look at verse 15 with me. And whoever's name was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. There will be a final roll call. Someone says, no. I guess God could do it this way. Can you imagine a teacher starting the school year with a school roster from 25 years ago and calling out the names and saying, please say here when I call your name, knowing full well that nobody in the class is going to have those names? There's no point. And so you say, then what's the point of judgment? There's a lot of points of judgment. There's a lot of points of judgment. First of all, even though we know, I think we still have to accept the fact that we have not been finally purified. You say, no. Everybody in here who honestly believes you are totally, absolutely, perfectly pure in your heart, like God would have you to be right now, raise your hand. Other than the baby. Yeah.
You're nice too.
When you and I stand before His purity and His holiness, you say, but we already received our everlasting bodies. Uh-huh. You say, that means we're automatically clean. Uh-huh. We're clean in the sense of justification, that He's already chosen not to impute guilt to us. We're clean in the sense of sanctification, in that He already began a work of holiness in us, and He's bringing it to completion, but He's not done with it yet. Paul says that to us. We get there, and we see Him in His holiness, and His purity, and His awesomeness, for the first time ever. We fully see Him. And you and I have to give an account for how we lived our lives here, as Christians.
So the works that he's talking about is our spiritual works, our
And
well, doesn't that fly in the face of those that say even baptism is a work and that's why it's not necessary?
not baptism and work, though.
But some people say that about
Sure.
our relief.
And their ignorance and error,
But the point I'm making, I guess, is that some don't, works are not even a part of it. You're just, once you're saved, you're always saved, and your works have no bearing on whether you're saved or not.
And that goes back to, can I make up any doctrine so that I can lie to myself here and now so I don't have to feel any guilt about having to stand before the eternal God? Sure. Once saved, always saved is the biggest security blanket anybody ever invented. Because I don't have to do anything towards my own holiness, my own righteousness, nothing. I just sit back, whatever I feel like being today, and I mean, let's be honest, that doctrine came out of rebellion against the Roman Catholic Church. And the Roman Catholic Church said, once saved, always saved is a lie. You still have to do good works. But what? We've talked about this before, what? They said good works was paying the priest to get you out of your sin. Right? And they were right to rebel against that because we've talked about that, right? And I quoted you the passages from the Roman Catholic texts where that's not even what Roman Catholicism actually taught. So, I mean, they weren't even being faithful to their own teaching. But you go 1 Corinthians 3. And feel free to disagree with me on this. All I ask is pray and meditate on it for about 6 to 10 years. 1 Corinthians 3. Beginning at verse 10. Paul Paul says, according to the grace of God that is given to me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, another builds thereon, but every man let him take heed how he builds upon it. For other foundation can no man lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now if any man builds upon this foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, and stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire. And the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abides, which he has built thereon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. You say, what's the point of judgment then? He's going to try our works and finish his process of purification of his saints. You say, wait, whoa, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I thought when I got there, it's all freebie. You're there, you know you're going in. We go to Revelation 21. No, this one's not on there, so make sure you write it down. Revelation 21 is not on my sheet. This is the new heavens, the new earth. This is after judgment is over. It says, I saw a new heaven and new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. Neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things have passed away. From this time forward, everything back here is no more. It's literally gone. It no longer exists. You say, I don't think it even exists on a subatomic level. I think God annihilates his original creation that thoroughly. Because in the first heaven, is there sin found in the first heaven? Sure there is. Satan and his angels. The earth is contaminated with it. Heaven's contaminated with it. The first creation is contaminated with sin. It's purified by fire, and it's taken out of the way forever. And he that sat on the throne, verse 5, says, Behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, Write, for these words are faithful and true. And he said, It is done. I'm Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give to him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things. I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the fearful, the unbelieving, the abominable, the murderers, whoremongers, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. You say, whoa. You say, but this happens after judgment. He gives us the picture, and then he takes us back. And he tells us, the ones who don't quit are the ones who are going to inherit, but the fearful or cowardly, the unbelievers, the abominable, they're not getting in. Now kick over to chapter 22. And actually, look back at chapter 21, verse 27. It says, And there shall no